Think about how many times you prove you're you online every single day,
Right.
logging into apps, buying things, checking email. It's just constant, these digital identity checks
Uh-huh.
and the system managing all that, making sure it is you and like keeping your data safe. That's consumer identity access management, CIAM. It's surprisingly complex.
It really is. And well, for this deep dive, we're using the Global Consumer Identity Access Management Market Report 2025. It's our guide.
Okay.
It's pretty comprehensive stuff. And, our goal is to pull out the insights that really matter for you, the things that give you a proper feel for what's going on in this pretty vital area.
And the scale here, honestly, it's kind of staggering. We're looking at what, USD 800 and 154 million in 2025.
That's the figure.
But get this, by 2033, it's projected to just explode.
Yeah.
USD 429.3 million.
Yeah.
That's like an average growth of nearly 18% a year. It really just hammers home how much our lives depend on secure online stuff now.
It's more than just big numbers, though. This growth, it shows a fundamental shift, right? How we live, how we do business. Every time online activity increases, every new digital service.
Yeah.
Well, it just ramps up the need for strong systems to manage and protect who we are online. So our mission today is to sort of unpack the why behind this huge expansion.
Okay.
And look at the key trends shaping it all and, how different regions are playing their part.
It might sound a bit technical, maybe a bit in the weeds.
It can be.
But trust us, we're going to pull out the important bits, make it easy to follow.
Right.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. What exactly is CIAM?
Okay. So at its core, CIAM is a specialized part of identity management. But instead of focusing on, say, employees inside a company.
Right, internal stuff.
Exactly. CIAM is specifically about managing the digital identities of customers, the users interacting with online services.
So, like, if regular identity management is the security guard for company staff, CIAM is the guard for everyone else, all the customers using the apps and websites.
That's actually a pretty good way to think about it. Its main job is managing how your clients access online things, apps, services, but with a really strong focus on security, protecting their data, and meeting all the legal rules.
Got it.
It's about letting the good guys in smoothly while keeping the bad actors out.
Okay, I'm with you. So what are the key pieces then? What does a CIAM system actually do day to day?
Well, there are a few key functions. User registration, that's the first step, how you sign up.
Right.
The identity verification, making sure you are who you say you are. Consent management is huge now, managing permissions for using your data.
Oh, yeah.
Multi-factor authentication, MFA, those extra security steps we're all getting used to.
Definitely.
And single sign-on, SSO. That's the handy one, letting you use one login for multiple related things. Saves a lot of hassle.
SSO, yes, love that. So it's not just about security barriers, it's also making things easier online.
Exactly. That's the goal. A good CIAM system tries to find that sweet spot, Strong security that doesn't wreck the user experience. That balance between being safe and being easy to use. It's absolutely key for getting people to actually use it and, well, keep them happy.
Makes total sense. And the report mentions specific industries where CIAM is really crucial. Which ones are leading the charge?
Yeah, points to retail, healthcare, BFSI, that's banking, financial services, insurance,
Right.
and IT and telecom.
Yep.
Those are the big ones for CIAM adoption. What they all have in common is, well, they handle massive amounts of sensitive customer data.
Yeah, you bet.
So strong identity management isn't just nice to have, it's essential for trust, for following the rules.
All right, so we've got a good handle on what CIAM is. Now back to that amazing growth. What are the big things pushing this market forward so fast?
The report flags two main drivers. First, and maybe the most pressing, is the constant threat of identity fraud and security breaches.
Yeah, sadly, those headlines are everywhere, aren't they? Feels like our digital lives are always under attack.
They really are. The amount and, frankly, the sensitivity of the data we have online, it just makes it a huge target for criminals. We're seeing this relentless rise in identity theft, unauthorized access, all aimed at fraud and big data breaches. Strong IAM systems, and CIAM specifically, are basically the frontline defense.
Okay.
They provide the tools to control who gets access to what, making sure only the right people get to the sensitive stuff.
And the report backs us up with some pretty scary numbers. A 45% jump in identity fraud back in 2020 alone. That's...
Wow.
It is startling. And the projected USD 56 billion loss in North America in 2021, that really shows the financial hit. It's not just personal inconvenience, it's a massive economic problem.
Yeah.
And the FTC data drives it home, too. Losses from identity theft went from, what, USD 1.8 billion in 2019 to USD 3.3 billion in 2020. Doubled.
Good grief.
And maybe the worst part, over 1 million kids affected by identity theft that year. These numbers just clearly show why sophisticated CIAM isn't optional anymore. It's fundamental.
Absolutely chilling. Okay, so that's the security threat. What's the second big driver for CIAM growth?
The other maybe factor is the big move towards cloud-based solutions.
Ah, the cloud. Right. As more companies shift their services and data to the cloud, the need for really good IAM becomes critical. For security, obviously, but also just managing remote access for users effectively.
That makes perfect sense. If everything's spread across different clouds, you need one solid way to control who gets in wherever they are.
Precisely. And cloud-based IAM often comes with better security features like two-step verification, policy-based access controls, things like that.
Okay.
Plus, just the complexity of managing security rules and making sure they're applied everywhere in the cloud, well, that also pushes companies towards CIAM. It gives them the framework they need. It's much harder than managing security on an old-school, self-contained network.
Okay, so we get the why behind the growth. Now, let's dig into the how. What are the key trends shaping the CIAM market right now?
Well, one big trend is just the sheer volume of online transactions.
Right.
Big companies, the ones handling tons of online interactions, they're really seeing how vital, robust CIAM systems are.
Yeah, I mean, think about huge online stores processing millions of orders, or banks with countless transactions every second. A breach for them is unthinkable.
Exactly. For those guys, strong security, protecting privacy, and making sure the user experience is smooth and reliable, it's all non-negotiable. And the sheer volume makes them prime targets for hackers trying identity theft or taking over accounts. That's why regulators are pushing them harder to use things like one-time passwords, MFA.
Right.
Especially with e-commerce and online banking just continuing to explode. And mobile use just adds another layer to that need.
So the more we do online, especially transactions, the more critical these security systems become, which directly fuels CIAM demand.
That's a huge part of it, yes. And the reliance on mobile for, well, everything just reinforces the need for strong but easy-to-use authentication methods across all platforms.
Gotcha. And what's the other big trend the report talks about?
It's this fundamental shift we're seeing, moving from traditional IAM towards the more customer-focused approach of CIAM.
Okay, explain that difference again.
So classic IAM was mostly about managing employee identities, securing internal company systems, still vital, of course.
Sure.
But it doesn't really handle the unique challenges of dealing with customers online, managing all those external users.
Ah, okay. So the focus is widening beyond just the company's own staff.
Exactly. Companies are realizing that to give customers a consistent, secure, good experience everywhere they interact digitally, they need a dedicated CIAM strategy.
Right.
That means managing huge numbers of different customer identities, making logins easy but safe, and using customer data smartly for marketing, yes, but also crucially for meeting privacy rules. It's much more outward-looking.
Okay, so we see why it's booming and the big shifts. Now let's zoom out. How does this look globally? Where's the market growing?
Right now, North America has the biggest slice of the pie, over 37% of the global market in 2025. That translates to about USD 312.98 million.
Wow, over a third.
Yeah, and it's expected to keep growing strong, a CR of 16.6% through 2033.
That's still pretty impressive growth. Why is North America leading?
It's a few things. Lots of big tech companies, cybersecurity firms are based there, so there's a lot of innovation.
Makes sense.
Plus, the rising number and cleverness of cyber attacks drives adoption. And regulations, like the CCPA in California, really push companies to prioritize consumer data security, which is where CIAM comes in.
And the report breaks down North America by country.
It does. The U.S. is the giant, USD 2,613.94 million in 2025, growing at 16.4%. Canada's next, around USD 397 million, but growing a bit faster at 17.4%. And Mexico, about USD 301 million, growing at 17.1%.
Okay, so North America is the current leader. What about Europe? How do they stack up?
Europe's the second biggest, over 29% of the market in 2025. That's roughly USD 2,596.66 million. And they're also looking at strong growth, projected CAGR of 16.9%.
So pretty close behind North America in terms of growth rate. What's driving it there? Similar factors?
Yeah, pretty similar. GDPR compliance is a huge driver in Europe. Companies have to invest in things like CIAM to meet those strict data protection rules.
Yeah, GDPR.
And also, European consumers are demanding secure, smooth online experiences, just like elsewhere. CIAM delivers that.
Any specific country details for Europe?
Yep. The UK market is estimated at about USD 436 million, growing at 17.7%. Germany's a big one, over USD 514 million, growing at 17.1%. France, around USD 239 million, growing at 16.1%. And Russia is sizable too, about USD 402 million, though growing a bit slower at 15.9%.
All right, so North America, then Europe. Now, Asia Pacific.
Yeah.
You said that's where the really rapid growth is expected.
That's right. APAC holds about 24% of the market in 2025. That's around USD 2,148.96 million. But yeah, it's projected to be the fastest growing region by a significant margin, a CAGR of 21.0% between 2025 and 2033.
Wow, 21%. That's huge.
Yeah.
What's behind that surge in APAC? Is it just more people getting online?
It's a mix of things. E-commerce is absolutely booming there.
Okay.
Plus massive uptake of cloud services across the board. At the same time, awareness of cyber threats is rising fast, driving demand for security. And you've got government initiatives like India's Digital India program pushing digitalization hard. That naturally means more need for CIAM to secure it all. It's just the sheer scale of digital transformation happening.
So a perfect storm of economic growth, more digital life, and better security awareness.
Exactly. And the report gives some country numbers too. China's CIAM market is massive, over USD 900 million, growing at 20.5%. India is growing even faster, nearly USD 215 million market size, but a CAGR of almost 23%.
Wow.
And Japan's around USD 297 million, growing at 19.5%. Really shows the energy in that region.
Those APAC growth rates are definitely something to watch. Okay, let's quickly cover the other regions mentioned: South America, the Middle East, Africa.
Right. South America is just over 3.8% of the global market in 2025, about USD 340 million, growing at 18.3%. The drivers there are the increasing need for secure CIAM as digital transformation picks up speed. Brazil's the biggest player, USD 145 million, growing at almost 19%.
In the Middle East, similar story.
Pretty similar, yeah. Around 4% of the global market, so about USD 358 million in 2025, growing at 18.4%. There's just this growing understanding of how important CIAM is as digital services expand. Saudi Arabia is key there, over USD 126 million, growing at 18.7%.
Okay, and lastly, Africa.
Africa's got a smaller share for now, around 2.2% in 2025. That's roughly USD 197 million. Projected growth is a bit lower, 13.7% CAGR. But you're seeing more CIAM adoption for secure transactions, more cloud use, especially in places like South Africa. Their market's about USD 69 million, growing at 14.6%.
Fascinating how these global trends play out differently region by region. Now, the report also brings up something else, the potential impact of Trump's tariffs. That sounds like it could really stir things up.
Yeah, it's a really important external factor. The report highlights that global trade is facing a lot of uncertainty because of these Liberation Day tariffs from 2025.
Okay.
They cover a wide range of goods, rates from 10% up to 46% on imports from different countries, even allies. And there's a flat 25% on steel, aluminum, auto parts.
That sounds expensive. How is the electronics sector specifically affected? Because that's obviously key for CIAM hardware and infrastructure.
Yeah, electronics is getting hit particularly hard, mostly because of the ongoing, or rather escalating, U.S.-China trade friction.
Right.
Tariffs on Chinese goods like semiconductors, consumer electronics.
Yeah.
They've shot up, some as high as 145%. And China's hit back with its own tariffs up to 125%, plus restrictions on exporting some critical minerals needed for electronics.
Ouch.
This is causing major headaches for the just-in-time supply chains the industry relied on. It's driving up costs for essential parts. And because supply chains are so global, these tariffs ripple out way beyond just the U.S. and China.
So the cost of our gadgets could go up, and manufacturers might struggle to get parts.
That's pretty much the gist, yes. The report mentions specifics. 25% tariff on semiconductors, 20% on lithium-ion batteries, 10–15% on things like laptops, tablets. These costs likely mean higher prices for consumers, which could hurt demand. And yeah, sectors like home automation, computer hardware, medical devices, they're all feeling the pinch from higher costs and potential supply delays. The CIAM market indirectly feels this pressure because it relies on all that tech infrastructure.
So what are companies doing to cope with this tariff mess?
Well, many are scrambling to rethink their sourcing, looking to diversify, shift production, or buy components from places like India, Mexico, Vietnam, places less impacted.
Okay.
They're also trying to redesign products sometimes to use parts that aren't hit by the highest tariffs. But, China is still such a huge player in electronics manufacturing, USD 119 billion in exports to the U.S. in 2023 alone.
Right.
So even if you source from elsewhere, parts might still come from China originally. It's complicated. U.S. firms are reportedly seeing input costs jump 18–25% on average.
Sounds like staying informed and flexible is absolutely vital right now.
Absolutely. The report really stresses how important good market research is now. Identifying alternative suppliers, tracking costs, optimizing product designs, forecasting demand shifts, keeping up with trade rules. It's critical. Tools for mapping suppliers, optimizing bills and materials, they're becoming essential. We're seeing companies actively building factories outside China and investing in digital supply chain tools to try and be more resilient.
So these tariffs aren't just political headlines. They have real impacts on the CIAM market and the tech world it depends on. Okay, let's pivot back to CIAM itself. What about the competition? Who are the big names?
Yeah, the CIAM market is definitely competitive. You've got big global players and smaller regional specialists all vying for position. The report names some of the dominant ones: IBM, Microsoft, SAP, through their CAGR acquisition,
CAGR.
Ping Identity, and Okta Inc.
Those are definitely heavy hitters in enterprise tech and security. What gives them the edge in CIAM?
Well, they often have really broad product suites, not just CIAM. They've got huge distribution networks partners.
Yeah.
And they invest heavily in innovation across identity management generally.
Right.
Plus, their brand names and the trust they've already built with big companies helps a lot.
And the report mentions some recent moves by these players, kind of showing how active the market is.
Yeah, a few examples. SAP and Microsoft collaborated back in Feb 2024 on identity management for SAP clients, leveraging both their strengths.
Okay.
Thales expanded its One Welcome identity platform into the U.S. market in March 2023, showing a focus there. And Okta Ventures, their investment arm, invested in a Singaporean company called Accredify in March 2024. Their first investment in Singapore, actually.
Yeah.
Highlights the global nature of this. So yeah, lots of strategic moves, lots of competition.
Okay, so we know the big players. Now, how does the report break down the market itself? You mentioned segmenting it in different ways.
That's right. We can look at it by component type, how it's deployed, the specific application, the size of the company using it, and the industry it's used in.
Let's start with components. What are the main types there?
It's mainly split between software and services. Right now, software makes up the biggest chunk of the market.
Okay.
Because, well, the software provides the core functions, right?
Yeah.
Secure logins, compliance features. It's the engine for managing identities, authentication, authorization.
And the services side.
While software is bigger, the managed services part is actually growing the fastest.
Interesting.
These services provide all the support, monitoring, maintenance, tech help. It lets companies focus on their main business, while experts keep the CIAM system running smoothly and securely. The rise of cloud CIAM really drives this, as cloud setups often need ongoing management and specific skills.
Yeah, that makes sense, like outsourcing the tricky security management. Okay, how about deployment? How are these solutions actually rolled out?
Deployment-wise, it's mainly software as a service, SaaS, or on-premise. SaaS has the biggest share currently.
Why is that?
Mostly because it's usually cheaper upfront, more flexible, easier to scale up or down. Companies of all sizes like SaaS, CIAM, because you don't need massive in-house IT infrastructure to run it.
Right. And on-premise, is that still a thing?
Oh yeah, definitely. While SaaS leads, on-premise is still growing solidly. This is where the company runs the CIAM system on its own servers, in its own data centers.
Okay.
Gives them more direct control over the system and the data. It's still popular in industries with super strict security or regulatory needs, like banking, finance, government.
Got it. Okay, moving on to applications. How is CIAM actually used?
The main application areas are things like directory services, authentication and access management, identity analytics, governance and compliance, and other bits like user provisioning. Right now, authentication and access management is the biggest segment.
Makes sense. That's the core login function.
Exactly. It covers things like passwordless logins, MFA, single sign-on, the stuff that makes interactions secure but also hopefully user-friendly.
And which application area is growing fastest?
That would be identity analytics.
Identity analytics. What's that?
It's using things like big data analysis, machine learning, to look at user behavior patterns, spot weird activity, and proactively identify potential security risks before they cause damage.
Ah, so it's like a smarter, proactive security system.
Pretty much. It learns what's normal and flags anything suspicious. It's gaining a lot of traction as companies try to get ahead of threats.
Interesting. Okay, what about company size? Is CIM mostly for big corporations?
Well, large enterprises do currently make up the biggest share of the market.
Right.
Mostly because their needs are so complex. Huge amounts of customer data, lots of different digital platforms. They need scalable, robust systems. But the small and mid-sized enterprises, the SMEs, that segment is actually growing the fastest.
Oh, okay. Why is that?
As more SMEs build up their online presence, they realize they need proper identity management too, to build trust, meet data rules. And crucially, more affordable and scalable cloud CIAM options are becoming available, making it accessible for smaller businesses.
That makes sense. Finally, industries. We touched on this earlier, but how does the market break down by industry sector?
Right. So the BFSI sector, banking, financial services, insurance, holds the largest share by industry right now.
No surprise there, given sensitive data.
Exactly. High stakes, strict regulations mean they need top-notch security and smooth customer communication.
Ah.
But the fastest growing industry segment is actually retail.
Retail, okay.
Yeah, retailers are really jumping on CIM. They're using it to create personalized, secure shopping experiences, build loyalty, drive sales, all while navigating those tricky e-commerce privacy rules.
So it's a really dynamic picture across the board, different segments moving at different speeds.
Yeah.
But the overall trend is clearly towards more and better CIM everywhere.
Absolutely. It's this complex mix of security worries, tech advances, changing regulations, and just the ongoing digital shift driving it all.
Well, this has been incredibly insightful, a real deep dive into the consumer identity access management market. Let's maybe quickly sum up the key takeaways.
Sure. I think the big ones are: the CIM market is growing significantly, pushed mainly by rising identity fraud risks and the huge shift to online and cloud services.
Right. And geographically, North America leads now, but keep a very close eye on the Asia-Pacific region for the fastest growth ahead.
Definitely. And we also touched on how external factors like global trade policies, those tariffs specifically, are adding complexity, especially for the electronic supply chain that CIM relies on.
Uh-huh.
And finally, it's a competitive space with big players like IBM, Microsoft, SAP, Ping, and Okta constantly innovating and battling for market share.
And just to bring it back to those opening numbers, USD 854 million in 2025, shooting up towards USD 33.4 billion by 2033. It really just underscores how critical CIM is becoming in our digital world.
It really does. And maybe that leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener.
Yeah.
As we rely more and more on these digital identities, how does CIM need to change? How will it evolve to handle future security threats and meet our expectations for, easy and safe online lives? What new tech or approaches might become vital in the next 10 years to keep that balance right between strong security and a smooth user experience?
Definitely some big questions to think about. We encourage you to consider what these trends mean for your own online life and the businesses you interact with. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.